Hello everyone, in this video we are going to learn about the RGB color model. Okay, this model is used in our website to make a beautiful representation of our text by using some additional colors to our text and by making some different borders to our website. Okay, this RGB color model is one of the most widely used color representation method in computer graphics, and basically the RGB color model is an additive color model in which the red, green and blue primary colors of the light are added together in various ways to reproduce a broad variety of colors. Okay, these all three colors will be used to reproduce a more number of colors. Okay, let me proceed further into this topic. Basically, this RGB refers to a system for representing the colors to be used on a computer display. For example, this R represents the red color and this G represents the green color and this blue represents the blue color. Okay, we will use some notations to our CSS files to represent the different colors in our web page. Okay, let me proceed further and make you a note of it how the notations will be used in our CSS file. To give you a bit picture about this model, generally it uses a color coordinate system with three primary colors. It will use a color coordinate system with three primary colors which represents the red color, green color and blue color. Okay, each primary color can take an intensity value ranging from 0 to 255. Okay, each primary color can take a value which will be ranges from 0 to 255. Okay, and 0 is the lowest intensity value and 255 is the highest intensity value. Okay, mixing all these three primary colors at different intensity levels will produce a variety of colors. Okay, the collection of all those colors obtained by such a linear combination of red, green and blue forms a cube shaped RGB color shape. Like, let me take a point over here. Okay, I am taking a point with a distance of 255 at the x-axis. Here the representation is like we will consider the x-axis of our coordinate system as red and y-axis as green and z-axis as blue. Okay, and let me take a point at the distance of 255 from the origin 0. Okay, I am considering a point here, and this point representation in an coordinate system will be like 255 0 0 like this. Okay, this is the representation of this point in an x-axis and this point represents the color of our red. Okay, and let me take a point over here. Okay, this is the red color, and if I take a point here which represents the blue color, okay, with an intensity of 0 0 20 255. This means the intensity of the color red which will be originated in the x-axis will be 0 here, and the intensity of the color green which will be originated in the y-axis will become 0, and the color which will be we have to implement in our system is blue color, so that we will using the high intensity value 255 over here as the third parameter of our coordinate system. Like this represents the blue color. Okay, if I take a point over here, okay, this point represents the elimination of the x and z axis. That means we are not taking the intensity values for the red and the blue. Okay, here this first parameter represents the x axis which means red color, and the last parameter represents the z axis which means blue color, and the middle parameter represents the green color. Okay, if I join these two lines, this is the green color. Okay, if I join these two lines and make a point over here, what I will get means this is the another point which have the intensity of both green color and red color, and we will generate it with a new color like yellow color. Okay, when we combine the intensities of the green and the red at some particular point, we will brought with some new color which is known as yellow color. Okay, and if I consider the intensities of red and the blue over here, let me take in a coordinate system as Okay, I am considering these two coordinate points and giving and adding some intensity values for that system. Okay, if I represent that point as 255 0 255, and the color which will be highlighted with our new intensity as magenta color. Okay, this color represents the magenta. Okay, that means here the three parameters represents the here x value. That means red intensity value is 255, which is highest intensity value, and here we are considering the green intensity value. That means y-axis intensity value as 0, and if we consider the z-axis intensity value, which is blue color, if we consider that color, that means we are brought with a new color of magenta. That means we are taking the sum of the blue color and red color. By combining the both the red and the blue color with some intensity values, we will originate it with some different color, which is magenta. Okay, and if I consider the blue and the green color, if I consider intensities of blue and the green color like this, okay, we are highlighted with a new color. We are brought with a new color with an intensity of eliminating the red value, and we are considering the highest values of the green and the blue. We will highlight it with a new color known as cyan color. Okay, this by mixing the blue and the green color with some intensity values, we will brought with a new color which is known as cyan. Okay, if I join all these points, all these intensity points at some extent, like everything will be highest values. Okay, that means we make this point as white color. Okay, if we consider all the parameters as highest parameters, like we are taking the red intensity as 255, green intensity as 255, and blue intensity as 255, we will originate it with some new color, nothing but white. Okay, and if I consider this originated point, that means when there is no color combination of our coordinate system, that means we are considering the point at the 0 0 0. That means we will contribute the color to as black color. Okay, I think you have a good picture how we will identify the colors in our RGB color model. Okay, this is the color representation by using coordinate system. Okay, I think you have a good picture about it now. That means by using these three red, green and blue colors, we can get the more number of colors in our website. Okay, this is the model that is most widely used in our computer graphics to make our representation of different colors. Okay, to give you a much idea about it, I can give you a better representation of this RGB color model. Okay, let me proceed. See here. Here, if we take the red color, green color and blue color, by combining the colors of the red and green, we will generate it with a new color yellow with some intensity. Okay, if we combine the red and blue color with some intensity, we will get a magenta color. Okay, if we combine blue and green color with some intensity, we will get a cyan color. For example, if we combine all three colors with some range of intensity values, we will get a white color at the center of our representation. Let me give you a quick overview. For example, I am taking my red color with an intensity values of red color is intensity value is 255, and I am considering green and the blue as 0 0. Okay, that means I am taking over this part only. This entire part I am represented with a dark red color. If I taking the values in between like this 255 0 0. If I taking green color intensity value, the intensity value will be looks like this. I am considering the intensity of the red and blue as 0 and taking the G as highest intensity value, which is nothing but 255. Okay, in our representation. And if I take a look over blue color, we will be represented like this. Okay, taking the red and the green values as 0 and considering the highest value of the blue. And if we combine the both red and green color, we will get the yellow, which will give us a general representation of the combination of the red and green with some intensity values. Okay, if I consider the blue here, blue and green, I will generate it with some new color like cyan, which is the combination of green and blue. If I mix the both blue and red with some intensity values, I will be generated with a magenta color with an intensity of combination of red and the blue, and eliminating the green here. And if we consider everything with some intensity values, we will generate it with a new color like white color, which is taking the highest values of 3 primary intensity values. Okay, this is the basic representation that we need to keep in mind before going into our original lecture. Okay, here we will see how we will have to give our notations to our website by using a CSS file. For example, here we will use some 3 different types of notations like RGB notation, RGBA notation, and hexadecimal notation. And generally in RGB notation we use RGB function, which defines the colors using the red, green, blue. Okay, by using RGB model we will represent the colors in an RGB notation. Like for example, we can define the RGB notation as, for example, if you give the intensity of the 255 red and 255 green by using this RGB notation, take the RGB as the notation name and open the parenthesis and give the values of our intensity. Okay, the intensity values of the red, green, and blue. We will generate, for this intensity we will generate a color of yellow color. Okay, for this intensity we will generate a color of yellow color. We already learned that by combining the red and the green at highest intensity values, we will generate a new color which is nothing but yellow. Okay, this is the general notation of the RGB, which will be used in our CSS files further. Okay, each parameter defines that the intensity of that color and can be any integer, which will be ranges between the 0 to the 255. That means this is the parameter value for the red, this is the parameter value for the green, this is the parameter value for the blue. Okay, these 3 parameter values should be ranges in between the values of 0 to 255. If we consider another parameter, 4th parameter in this RGB notation, that notation is nothing but an RGBA notation, which is transparency notation. That means RGB with a transparency is nothing but an RGB notation, RGBA notation. Okay, that means here the A is represented as alpha for transparency. Okay, to indicate the transparency we will use A for representing the RGBA notation. And this notation will be looks like, if we take the notation as RGBA, here we need to include A also. Sorry for that mistake. Here we need to include A, RGBA. Okay, if you take the notation name as RGBA and open the parenthesis with 4 parameters. The first parameter represents the red color intensity, and the second parameter represents the green color intensity, and the third parameter represents the blue color intensity, and the 4th parameter, which is a new one to this parenthesis, which is represent the transparency value of our color. That means if you include this 0.5 in these 3 parameters with the notation RGBA, it will give a color like yellow with some transparency of value of 0.5. Okay, make a note over it. And you need to include something that here the notation is not RGB. Okay, please modify that mistake, and this notation is like RGBA. Okay, and for hexadecimal value, instead of using a scale from 0 to 255, we go from 0 to FF. Okay, here this FF is nothing but an hexadecimal number of 255. Okay, this FF is nothing but an hexadecimal number of 255. Okay, instead of using a scale values from the 0 to 255, we will use simply as 0 to FF. And what is this FF? It is an hexadecimal number of 255. We can give this notation as by using hash symbol. Like if we give hash FF00, this will generate the same thing that we can generate from here. That means we are giving RGB notation within parenthesis the intensity values like red, green, blue with 255, 255 and 0. Here the same thing happens by using the asterisk symbol. By using hash, we can include the R value first over here, and we can include G value next, and we can include B value. Okay, with this we can use an hexadecimal notation easily by using the 0 to FF. Okay, we will use notations from the 0 to FF. Here for FF represents the intensity value of the red color, which is nothing but 255, which is a hexadecimal number of the 255. Okay, and this green will represent the intensity value of green, which is 255 only, and this 00 represents the intensity value of the blue, which is nothing but 0, and we will generate the same color as we generated here. Okay, that is nothing but yellow. Okay, in shorthand, when all colors are identical pairs, that means here in this case we will taking the both letters as the F. Okay, we will taking the both letters as the F. In that case we will use a shorthand notation. For that notation we can easily use as #FF0. That means instead of using two F's over value for the intensity of red, we can use a single F, and for the intensity of the green we will use a single green F. And for the shorthand notation, when all colors are in identical pairs, we can use this type of notation, which will give us the same resultant color like yellow. Okay, and when all three colors are, for example, when all three colors are in the same channels, we get a gray color. For example, if the three parameter values will be same, okay, whatever the value may be, which will be ranging from 0 to 255, whatever the value, if the three values will be equal, we will generate a different gray colors based on the intensity values. For example, if I take a value of RGB 255, 255, 255, in which the three parameters will have the same intensity values, we can also represent this thing in the hexadecimal notation as FF, FF, FF. And for the shorthand notation, we can include only single terms like F, F, F. Okay. For this notation, we will generate some different color of gray. Okay. And let me take another example. If I taking the example as 0, 0, 0, which the intensity values of the three parameters will be equal. Okay, in this same thing also, we will generate a different intensity gray color. Okay, we can also represent this same notation as in hexadecimal notation like this. In shorthand notation, we can use like this. Okay, for example, if we consider RGB 92, 92, 92, this is the having the same intensity values of GBR. Okay, for the same intensity values within the parentheses, we can have the different intensity gray colors. Okay, this thing will be represented in the hexadecimal number as 5C, 5C, 5C. This 5C is nothing but an hexadecimal value of the 92. Okay, in this way we can represent the hexadecimal notations. Okay, for example, for the first notation we will generate a color like this, which is a something like dark gray. Okay, for the second notation we will generate it with a light gray, and for this intensity of 92 value we will generate it with a this type of gray color. Okay, these are the things that you need to keep in mind when you use notations in our CSS file. But one thing I promise you, that we are using a Visual Studio Code editor for our web page designing. For that you don't need to worry about all the things, because we have a feature in our VS Studio Code editor as color picker. Okay, we have a color picker in our Visual Studio Code editor. Okay, by using this color picker we don't need to worry about the identification for every intensity. If we use some intensity value, we can easily pick a color from our color picker in our Visual Studio Code editor. Don't worry about all these things, but you need to keep in mind all those RGB color models, how will be looking like in our backend. Okay, we need to keep in mind all these general topics as a web page designers. Okay, that's it. Thank you.